Many voices, one mission, health for all. Plant-powered Metro New York's 4th annual Plantathon celebration is here. And I know you're expecting Wendy and Carole, and you'll see them both in a second. My name is Jim Spellos, producer of the Chef Carole Show and co-host of the Plantathon, joining you from Venice, Florida, not Italy, by the way. Over 8 days, the past 7, and going into tomorrow, Plantathon 2025 celebrates the diverse and ever-expanding movement for health through plant-based nutrition, not only in the New York metro area, but across the country and the globe. Together, we're bringing about a more healthy and more sustainable future by putting wholesome plants on our plates. Now, for those of you joining us for the first time who don't know us, Plant-Powered Metro empowers diverse residents and communities to achieve vibrant health and overcome chronic disease through whole food, plant-based nutrition. Eating plants can prevent, treat, and even reverse a wide array of health concerns and conditions. We're in right now day 7 of Plantathon, hard to believe. And Plant-Powered Metro has made a commitment to give back to you through Plantathon while asking for your financial support of our mission. And for those of you who watch Chef Carole every month, you know how much she gives of herself and Wendy to the organization. So please, we invite you to donate through the QR code on the link on your screen. Every donation you make through the end of this month, December, will be matched by a generous anonymous donor. And anyone who donates or registers for Plantathon, even by the end of today, Sunday the 7th, with or without a donation, will be entered to win one of many great prizes, one of which we're going to have the prize winner announced after Carole is done with all her cookies. So for more information about how to enter and win a Plantathon prize, you can see our official rules linked on our website. Before we let you get to Wendy and Carole, huge thanks, California Balsamic, Farm to People, for sponsoring the Plantathon. And at this point, I'm going to bring the real co-host of the show on here. I think you should be right there. Hey, Wendy, how are you?
Hi, Jim. Wow. I have to congratulate you and Liana and the whole Plant-Powered Metro team. Yes, I'm bragging on all of you and thanking you. I've been following the Plantathon, and oh my God, the people you have on are amazing. And for those of you who this might be a new thing, do go back on our YouTube channel, because all of these have been recorded and the replays are pretty fantastic. The amount of information that has come forth just in these last 6-7 days, one whole night in Spanish. It's really an amazing gift I'm very proud to be part of in giving back to the community. And it's also not transactional in that way, but it's our year-end appeal. So throughout our show today, maybe not entirely while Carole's cooking, but I will, and I know Jim will towards the end, ask you to be generous with us. All of our programs are really dependent on the financial support we get, and we have an angel donor who will match your donations by the end of the year. So please give and think generously for us tonight if you enjoy the show, and even if you don't enjoy the show. Anyway, my name is Wendy Sachs. I'm on the board of Plant-Powered in Metro New York. I couldn't be more delighted every month to host this show with my dear friend Carole Levy of Veggie Vanguard. And we're happy to welcome you to our monthly series, to Plantathon. And for those of you who are joining us from the Marley Marsden JCC Manhattan, welcome. I know that Caroline at the JCC sent out a last-minute email, so welcome as well. As you know, Plant-Powered Metro empowers people to achieve better health and overcome chronic disease through a whole food, plant-based approach to nutrition. We offer evidence-based education, resources, and a grassroots network of support to create community and inspire change. And together, really as a community, together, each of us as individuals coming together, we have our leaders and organizers and educators who raise awareness about the dramatic health benefits of whole food plant-based nutrition, empower individuals to make their own lifestyle adjustments, and lead projects that spark changes in food policy, food practice, and food culture. So general announcements, as we usually do, it's December here in the Northeast and New York area. Farmers markets are dwindling, sadly, but many of the farmers are still bringing fresh kale and cauliflower, rutabaga, healthy winter squashes, carrots, onions, root vegetables. Apples are still quite abundant here, pears too. So this is our seasonal food right now. And as always, we encourage you to buy and eat organically. And if you can, if there's a regenerative farm near you, those fruits and vegetables that are grown in a healthier soil, even healthier than organic with regenerative farming, is even better for your health. So choose the best soil possible. So quickly, upcoming events. Jim is talking about the Plantathon. You're already hearing. I encourage you to go back and listen to the replays. But the most important thing we have coming up, which I really encourage all of you to tell your friends and family about, is our Winter Jumpstart. We've opened the enrollment. And it will start on January 22nd. It's really a month-long project with a month-long commitment, and 21 days of that, people are encouraged to go strictly, or as strictly as possible, whole food, plant-based. Enrollment our deadline is January 16th, so it's a great Christmas gift if you want to give someone the gift of health. And we encourage you to also take it as a refresher, or take it or give the gift to somebody else. And there's a lot more information about the Jumpstart, the schedule, what it entails, how to prepare on our website. And then through the month of December, you'll also find on our events page mostly in-person events in the metro area. Our Plantathon event is really where we've brought in speakers and lecturers and leaders in the plant-based movement. And so this is our online presentation in these last 8 days, and one more tomorrow. And so for the community here, we're doing a lot of live cooking demos, meetups, potluck gathering, and we encourage you in your respective communities to get friends together and celebrate in person too. So with that, I know you're all anxious to get going on the cooking and cooking cookies. So Carole, what's on the menu?
Oh, well, we have so much, Wendy, and I'm so excited about, we're at the end of the year, we're in holiday mode, we're in Plantathon mode, and Jim, I just want to make sure, I had some technical issues after I left you. Is everything looking good?
You're looking great. You're looking great, Carole.
Fantastic. Thank you. So before we begin, we have like so many things to do, and I hope that we get to it all. There are like 5 cookies that we're going to make today. And I just want to really quickly have a little disclaimer. I wrote it on the recipes, but I like to just tell you that these cookies are a healthier choice. When Wendy was, when we were walking, I remember in the park, and I said, no butter, no sugar. How am I going to ever bake again? I was just like in a most crisis moment. And it was over an apple pie that we talked about all this. But I didn't really, I spent years now trying to figure out, like, how do I bake without the butter and the sugar? And my point here to you is that everything we're using today comes from the whole food. We're not using any oil. We're not using any butter. We're not using any sugar. But all these things that we're using still contain sugar and contain fat. So please always just keep this in mind. You can treat yourself to these cookies, but just don't overindulge. Okay, so I'm not going to repeat that a million times. I just wanted to be able to say that out loud. So we are going to start with molasses cookies. I've tried to prep as much as possible today just so we can get through everything. So most of the recipes today don't necessarily come from me, but I feel like I've adapted them in some way to make it fit. And this very first recipe is a ginger molasses cookie. It comes, Wendy, from our favorite Indian vegan Risha. and remember when I would sit at your table and just like look page after page after page about her book?
I do. I absolutely love her recipes.
Yeah, so you have two of the books, I know, and I have zero, but I really like looking at her work. You know, I subscribe to her newsletter, and I'm very excited about these cookies because not only are they gluten-free, but they're also grain-free. So I seem to have a lot of gluten-free friends. So I also have tried molasses cookies, ginger cookies so many times. And it's a cookie I love so much, especially at this time of year with the spices. My ideal cookie in this arena for ginger molasses is that I want it crunchy on the outside but soft in the middle. And the idea is that we want it to crack on the top. So I have tried numerous recipes. And although they often will say, oh, it's going to crack on the top, you really do need that sugar often to make it crack on the top. So I'll show you what we're going to do. So in this bowl, I have 1 cup of almond flour. I have 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, or you can use tapioca flour. Either one works. And to this bowl of dry ingredients, I'm going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of ginger, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and an 1/8 teaspoon of allspice. And I've added a little cardamom too. I write that optional because maybe you don't want so many spices, but anytime I can put in cardamom into anything, I just go for it. Sometimes I even see a recipe that has cardamom and I'm like, okay, that's the recipe I'm making. So we're just stirring this around. As you probably know, almond flour has a lot of little lumps. So you do want to get those out. I'm just using a little whisk here to kind of get everything mixed up. And the ingredients here are 4 tablespoons of maple syrup. The original recipe had 3 tablespoons with 1 tablespoon of oil. And she recommended that if you weren't using oil, to use an extra tablespoon of maple syrup. So I have 4 tablespoons that I'm going to put right into here. Okay, 4 tablespoons. And then, of course, we need to have that molasses, okay? And molasses is one of those things that you might not have with you in your pantry, but it is actually one of the better sugars for you. We're not going to have a class just in talking about which sugars are the best, but I will just summarize and tell you that the dates, whole dates, are the best. And molasses is like the second best because the molasses actually is processed, but what happens is they crush the sugar and they get all this juice out of it, and then they boil the juice, and it's the juice that becomes the molasses. So that's kind of like my short explanation of molasses. So molasses is actually pretty good for you, believe it or not. It's strong. And if you're curious about different kinds of sugars, and what is good and what is, the ratings, how is dates are the best, like I said, and I almost really truly believe molasses is probably the second best. I'm putting in 1.5 tablespoons right now of the molasses into this cookie, and I'm gonna get out my thing, my little whisk here, and put this away. This is all, we're already done with this basically. And we're gonna mix this, and it's gonna get all sticky, okay? And you can make the cookies any size you want, practically. This recipe doesn't make a lot, so it depends on the size cookies that you make, and that's how many you're going to yield, right? I like kind of making them a little bit big, but it's up to you on how you do it, okay? And this is it, right? This is mixed. I just want to make sure all the wet and dry ingredients, then that's when you're baking. You usually do set yourself up for the wet ingredients all together, the dry ingredients, and then they come together. So let's just get a sheet pan. Now, I haven't tried not rolling these in sugar. I think that these cookies would crack, and we could try one just to see. And I didn't mention that the oven is preheated to 330 degrees. Okay. If you don't have 330 because you don't have a digital oven, then just set it, just at 325 and just a hair over. Okay. Because you want them to cook slow. Most cookies cook at 350 degrees or 375. So this is what I'm calling a slower oven. Now, I have somewhere a little bit of coconut sugar. And some people think coconut sugar is pretty good for you, but I have to tell you, it still does have some saturated fat, any of the coconut products. But we're just going to use a little bit. I prefer this coconut sugar, rolling the cookie in this coconut sugar over date sugar, because it's just this particular one that I have is a little more grainy and not as fine. Okay, so I'm using a scoop. This scoop is the same scoop I use almost every time for everything. It's a number 40. Again, it's up to you. We're just gonna scoop a bunch of cookies here like that. Again, it's not gonna make so many, maybe 6 or 7. So if you're making a lot, maybe you wanna make them smaller. But when I'm bringing holiday cookies somewhere, I think it's more important to have variety and then all one kind of cookie. So I'd rather make a small batch of cookies and then move on to the next one, which is kind of how we're doing today.
Carol,
So,
a quick
yes.
interruption. What was the number scoop that you said you're using?
Oh, it's a number 40. It's like really hidden here on the side of the scoop. I would say it's probably maybe probably an inch and a half. But it's a scoop I use always. And like I said, it's totally up to you on how the size that you make them. You're
Great.
gonna see that throughout this demo that I actually make things pretty small. But
Great.
these I'm actually gonna make pretty like what I call a more normal sized cookie. So I put my hands in a little water, and I'm just going to roll this cookie in a little bit of the what do you call it? The coconut sugar. Yeah, just a little bit. And it's probably not a good idea that I set them all on the paper, but because the dough is very sticky.
Did you use blackstrap molasses or
I didn't,
fancy?
in this particular recipe, I'm using just the unsulfured. The brand is wholesome, and it's organic fair trade molasses. This doesn't matter. Sometimes it does matter, Wendy, if that's a question. That sometimes it does matter that you use black strap or you use the unsulfured. This is the unsulfured.
Got it. Okay, good.
Okay,
Thank you.
but this doesn't, for this amount, you're only putting a tablespoon and a half. It's not going to make a huge, big difference.
Super.
Okay. Is there any other questions while I'm
No
sitting
other
here
question,
rolling?
but I realized that I did have sort of anticipating these cookies. I did have a fun fact, which is, as Carol said, these are cookies. So it's not like anything's going to be low-cal, but if you're going to move from dates to one thing a little more processed like molasses actually still does have iron and calcium and potassium and magnesium. This is all stuff I looked up online, and it does have health benefits. It says bone health, nerve function, it fights cell damage. So it looks like it is really within our mission of having nutrients, even though it's one step more processed than.
Correct. And you know what, Wendy, the best person that talks about sugar, I mean, at all the, forks over knives, there are many places that rates the kinds of sugar and what's good, what's not so good. But the crazy thing is, Dr. Greger does the best job. He must have 4 or 5 particular little videos about sugars. And he says that molasses is his second choice.
Yes.
And he does eat it on his oatmeal in the morning.
Super. Yeah,
So,
it
so
seems,
it is a
it's
really okay thing. So
very good.
I'm gonna now put these in the oven, and they are going to bake again, kind of slowly for 11 to 13 minutes. So we're gonna put them in, and unfortunately, I don't have a real timer in the kitchen. I always use my phone, but I'm using my phone for other things at the moment. So I'll have to just watch the clock, and we'll just watch.
Do you want me
These
to remind
cookies.
you?
If someone, yeah, that would be awesome. That would be the greatest. That
11,
would be the greatest.
11 minutes?
Yeah, let's look at them in 11 minutes because I think they're almost done at 11. Um, I live in a high altitude. Many of you know that I left New York and moved to New Mexico, and I've had to relearn some of my baking here in this very high altitude. So, if anything that I say says 11 minutes, well, 11, it's really 11 to 13 minutes. And you're just always going to look at because every oven differs a little bit. Some ovens run hot, some ovens run cool. So you just want to check them at the 11-minute mark. And then if they need a little more, then you need a little more. So we're going to move on to our next thing, which is actually a biscotti recipe that I very much love. It actually comes from Forks Over Knives cookbook, which I don't own, but my friend sent it to me, this recipe, in an email. Literally, he sent me a picture of it. And from the moment that I received it, I looked at it and I started just to change it immediately. So the way that I've written it up for you is the way all the changes that I've made to the recipe. So I'm pretty inspired by the basic recipe that was provided from Forks Over Knives, but I really have altered it a lot. And I've never made the regular recipe ever. So, and every time I make it, I kind of do a little change. So let's go over this because this is the one thing that actually takes some time. So I'm going to get a bowl, and I haven't measured any very much out, and we're going to go over all the details, okay? And biscotti means twice baked. And I worked in an Italian bakery back in the Bay Area years and years ago, and our biscotti at Semi Freddy's was the most famous. And we made so much biscotti that my hand got tired of it from cooking. So this recipe I'm calling chocolate pistachio biscotti. And I want you to keep in mind that this base recipe, you can make some changes, okay? And I'll tell you where intuitively you can make the changes, but let's just follow along how I've set it up. So the very first thing that you want to do is we want the oven to be at 350, but it's not right now. It's at 330 cooking the other oven. And we want to take 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed, okay? And we want 1/3 cup of 1/3 cup of plant-based milk. That could be any kind of plant-based milk, oat, soy, almond, any of those things. And I'm just gonna look for I love my whisk, but I'll just use this little whisk for now. So we're not really making a flax egg, but we are kind of. Usually the flax egg is just flax and water, but this is a little fancier and not quite the exact same measurements of a flax egg, but it is acting as an egg, okay? And if anybody has any questions about the flax egg, it's normally 1 tablespoon of flaxseed with 3 tablespoons of water. But we're making it a little richer and nicer with that plant-based milk. So I'm just going to kind of keep my notes here so the next thing is, remember I told you we want to get all our wet ingredients and then our dry ingredients. So when I got this original recipe, it called for 3/4 cup of sweetener. And it actually says 3/4 cup dry sweetener. And it said see page 13, but I didn't have the book. And I was like, see page 13, I don't have that. And 3/4 above any amount of sugar seems to be an awful lot. So the first time I made this, I cut it back and it said dry sweetener, but I didn't know which dry sweetener they were referring to because I didn't have page 13. So I immediately gravitated to, you could, I gravitated to using date paste at the beginning. And I did a third of a cup of date paste, and then I added enough water to make a half a cup of sugar. Okay, so do you understand? I took a third of a cup and made it, added water and made it a half a cup. Today, I baked the biscotti. You're gonna see it for the first time with date sugar, dry date sugar, and I used a half a cup. So we'll see how that went because I've never done that before. But I am going to use a half a cup of maple syrup. And again, that sounds like a lot, but we do need this little bit of added sugar in this, especially because we're making these chocolate and we're using cocoa, and cocoa is not sweetened. So again, I've cut the recipe back. I almost always do that when I see a baking recipe. If it has way too much sugar, I immediately start to pull back. And maybe time after time, I start to adjust, always trying to lower it and see what I can actually get away with. So I've just added a half a cup of maple syrup, and you could do a half a cup of dried date sugar. That's what I did earlier today, and we're going to see that. Okay, so then we're going to need applesauce. Now I have a jar of applesauce, but I want to show you that I do buy these little tiny applesauces, that they have in kids' lunches or snack. You could be in your adult lunch just as a snack. I buy these because often in baking, I just need 2 tablespoons or a half a cup, and I don't necessarily need to open a whole jar. But today I did open a whole jar because I have been using applesauce a lot. So we need a 1/4 cup. So I'm going to get this measure, and this is a third, and I just need to find my 1/4 cup, and we're going to get a spoon out. And I'm looking at the clock. We're almost up on time, right, Wendy? Is that right? Almost our 11 minutes. I hope so. I think so. Did I lose you? I
I'm
maybe
so
lost.
sorry, my mic was off. I was answering. You've got about 4 more minutes.
Okay. So I just added a 1/4 cup of apple sauce, and we're going to go to the next wet ingredient, and it's going to be almond butter. Now, you can use any kind of almond butter, but I am, for my baking, and not for other things, but for my baking, I really like this very high end. I call it high end because it's just one ingredient. It's all natural. It's usually raw, not roasted, and it's the Artisana. Okay, I use that brand for cashew butter as well as almond. You can use the almond butter that you make in the store on your own. It's just sometimes that's roasted, sometimes it's salted. So just be careful. I don't love the roasted because that adds another kind of flavor to it. So just again, you can use whatever, and you don't really want it too runny, but you actually don't want the applesauce too thick either. It's one of those things where you want it just, I don't know, good consistency. And I find this particular brand to be wet, not dry, and not runny. Sometimes, it's like tahini, right? Some tahini is totally runny. Some tahini is really thick, and you learn which kind works the best for whatever it is that you're making. Okay, so I've added the applesauce and the peanut butter. Now we're going to start to add some of the other things. And let me get the measuring. So we're going to add a half a teaspoon of vanilla and a half a teaspoon of almond. I know that sounds like a lot of flavor, but I do like to have the almond flavor in the biscotti. There's something about when you make Italian things that it really tastes like Italy when you add that almond extract. If for some reason that was something you don't have in your pantry, the almond extract, just use a little bit more vanilla, okay? And then we're going to move on, and I so I changed the recipe. That the original recipe needed a cup and 2/3 of whole wheat pastry flour. So I substitute a third of a cup of the flour and make it cocoa. So I don't want to confuse anybody, so we're just going to keep going down my list here of what we're adding. So now we need to start getting the dry ingredients together. And I don't know, I don't have too many bowls, but let's just see if we can make this little bowl. Because this is now the wet ingredients, and we need to make the dry ingredients. So we need a cup and a third of pastry flour, whole wheat pastry flour. And you might wonder, like, what is the difference? I usually have this in a jar, but I bought so much of it just recently that I decided we were going to use it all. So I thought I better not put it away. So here's going to be my third of a cup. And then we're going to do we're going to do 1 cup. Pastry flour is lighter than regular whole wheat flour. Okay, so I kind of encourage you to get the pastry flour, the whole wheat pastry flour. If it's something that you don't have, then maybe use your whole wheat flour and a little bit of all-purpose white flour mixed in to make it lighter, because the whole wheat flour, the straight whole wheat flour, is going to be very just heavier, and you don't really want it to be heavier. And then we need a third of a cup of cocoa. That's going to go in here. So I'm getting my cocoa out of my jar here. And we're just
Carol,
getting.
check the cookies.
Oh, thank you so much. Winnie forgot.
No,
Thank
I
you
was
so
just
much, Jim, being the
I was
host
just
in the
about to
back.
tell you. Jim
I
heard
saw
my
the time,
alarm, and
actually.
I was just about to
Oh
tell
my
you,
God,
and
they're
he beat
looking
me to it.
beautiful. And they're almost done. I think maybe they need the 2 more minutes. But I just want to show everyone what they look like. Whoa, without sliding. We're going to put them
Amazing.
in for like 2 minutes, less than, because what's going to happen is as they come out, you don't want to take them off right away because they're really soft. So you give them a few minutes to get hard, and then you take them off. So let's just finish measuring, and then we're going to just immediately take them out. So we have our cocoa, we have our whole wheat and whenever I use cocoa in chocolate, I always add espresso powder. It's something you don't have to use. This is just an instant espresso, and I'm adding 1 teaspoon. Okay, and I have a half here, so I'm doing it twice. So I want 1 teaspoon. Again, that is pretty optional, but it is something that I do really like. And then we want to have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch in here. And I'm just making sure that I have my tablespoons. So we want 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Okay, that's going in here. And then we need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. It's like, see why I did a lot of things ahead of time, because it's just faster. But I wanted you to see all of this. And then 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Okay, 2 teaspoons. They're going here. And then, remember I talked about the almond extract as being part of Italian. Well, also what makes things Italian is the aniseed. Again, some people have an adverse, like, oh, I don't like that. Well, honestly, if you don't like it, just don't put it in. It's not going to change it so much, but it's something that I really super love. So we're going to mix these dry ingredients. Let me just get like a fork for a moment.
Check
And then
the
we're
other,
going to put our nuts, and then we're getting the cookies out because we have to. And we're turning the
Thank
oven
you.
up to 350 at the same exact time. So the cookies are going to come out. They look beautiful. And they're just going to sit there for a few minutes. And then what we're going to do is move all these cups that are dirty. I'll probably be looking for all those cups at some point. But I really wanted to show you the biscotti really thoroughly. It's very important. So this now, all these dry ingredients are going to get mixed in here. Okay, it's a long list of ingredients, right? And we're going to, we don't need the scoop, but I did wash it out. And this is just getting mixed. And normally this is where you can start to change things a little bit. If you don't want to do pistachios and chocolate chips, you could do almonds and sliced almonds and dried cherries. That would be delicious in a chocolate batter. Okay, you could put a little bit of orange zest in here if you wanted to do that. Okay, there are baking is definitely a science that you have to follow, but at the same time, there's a little bit of flavors and things that you really can add. I love the green pistachios for Christmas, and I love pistachios and chocolate the most. And I put chocolate chips. So let's just get the chocolate chips and the pistachios. So we need a third of a cup, and this is the kind of chips that I'm using today. I've baked over the couple of years, many. There are different kinds of chips, and you really have to sort through which ones don't have all the processed sugar. Lily's is a brand that is good. HU makes a good, delicious chocolate chips that I love for melting. But I do love this brand called Just Date. And literally it's chocolate and dates. And so that's pretty great. The ingredient list is too small for me to read at the moment, but we're going to put a third of a cup of dates of chips. And then these go right back into my freezer. That's where I keep them. And I do like these chips, actually. They're good. I haven't really tried to melt them. And then we need 2/3 of a cup of pistachios. Okay, so we're going to put 2/3. Try to buy the raw, unsalted kind if you can find the pistachios that are raw and unsalted. Okay, and then I'm going to get in here, and this is going to be a little messy, but let me see how much I can do with the actual spatula. So this is the dough. Okay, now I have already baked the dough because biscotti is a little bit time consuming in the sense that the word says we are baking it twice. Biscotti means bake twice, and we have to bake it twice. So I just want to show you very quickly how to shape this. I mentioned in the recipe that I like the cookies small.
Do you want to
It's up
show
to
us the
you
dough?
how much you use. I'm just gonna wet my hands a little bit, but then kind of dry them off. I weigh the cookies into 3 sections. And what do? I think I wrote it here. It's 230 grams. 230 grams gives me 3 big balls, okay? But it honestly doesn't matter. I just like making things even. So you're going to make a log with your hand like this. You're going to put it on your parchment. It is super, super sticky. And I used in the previous batch that I made, I used the date sugar, and it's not quite as sticky, and I kind of like that. So if it's too sticky, just wet your hands. And the shape really depends on how big the cookie is. Again, I like making it, the recipe recommends that you make it like 3 inches across and 12 inches long. You ultimately want it to be about a 1/2 inch high. Okay, so you're just basically going to form these long, and this could be as long as you want it to be. Doesn't matter as long as it fits on your cookie sheet. It doesn't matter. Okay, I'm just showing you how this is formed, and often form the very end at an angle, because you're going to see why later. But this basically goes in the oven, and we could put it in the oven so you can see. I'm not going to mix all of it right now because it's too much and we have to move on. But we'll put this in the oven, and this goes in the oven for approximately 25, 28 minutes or so, because you need it to bake and it needs to get hard. Okay, so you see, just want to show you what this looks like. Imagine that it's on a cookie sheet and it's long and thin, and the width of it really is going to determine how long or how short your cookie is. When I divide the dough into 3 balls, I get very small biscotti, and I actually really like that. Let's just put that on a sheet pan. Let's see how many sheet pans here. And we're going to just bake that, and that gets baked for, let's just say 25 minutes, okay? And we're going to look at the clock, and that's going to be then. Okay, I see when that's going to be, but what I want to show you is that I already baked some earlier for you, okay? And this was with I made these with the date sugar, not the maple syrup. And what you want to do now is get a cutting board. I'm just going to get out my cutting board. And you want to get a very sharp knife. And you don't want to use like a sawing motion. You want to cut and then go straight down. Okay. So I form these so that they were slightly at an angle, but I always trim it anyway. Okay. The end cookie is always the end cookie. I don't know. And then you want to cut it. It's about a half an inch. Okay. And you just go a half an inch with every cutting, right? Cutting straight down. And I'm cutting a little bit at an angle. Okay. And I'm just showing you what this is like. Again, you get that end cookie. Sometimes it breaks. And what you want to do is they go right back onto your same sheet pan, because they have to go back in the oven, and they go back in the oven and they need to dry out, right? Because the biscotti is going to be a dry, hard cookie that you want to dip into your tea or coffee. Okay, so again, I'm just cutting straight down. Okay, and these will go back in the oven. And I usually put them in the oven for 10, and the oven usually goes up in temperature to 375, but we have those cookies in there at this very moment at 350. So I'll just put them in at 350, but they need to really, this is when you really would increase the oven, okay, just for them to dry out. Can everybody, I'm going to move my cutting board in a second so everyone, then let me just finish. You see, my cookies are really short. They're probably 2.5 inches. Again, if you made it wider to begin with, then you would end up with longer cookies, okay? And I always do the trimming of the end one. And then, like I said, I'm going to just stick these in the oven and let them start to dry out. I'm not going to change the temperature, although we are going to need to go to a 375 oven pretty soon. But let's just see if we can get those other cookies. Let's just see where we're at. Okay. So
Carole,
these are
when you're
these were
lying,
made with the date sugar. They look pretty good, actually.
when you're lying,
Some of the chocolates come out, but
Carole,
I'm just going to show them to you. Can everyone see?
I need to interrupt
Can
you.
you
When
see, Wendy, how good they look?
I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can't hear you at all, but that's okay.
Oh, that's why. Sorry, everyone. We're talking over
Strange
each
that I
other.
can't hear you.
Not sure what to do about that.
Hmm.
Okay, don't worry.
I don't
Go
know where
ahead.
you went, but that's okay. I'm
Oh,
not going to worry about it. I'm going to put these in the oven.
okay.
Odd not to hear you. That worries me, but okay.
Yeah,
going
I'm
to
not
put
sure
them
why
into
Carol's
the
not here.
oven right now. And they're going to start to dry out. And I'm going to eat the end of this cookie because it is baked. It's just not officially dry yet. Wendy, is there a reason why I can't hear you?
I'm not sure. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you if I don't talk, but
I
strange.
see. Let
I
me
wonder if I
ask
should just turn on my computer and then I could really hear you. It's a
can you
very
hear me?
strange thing. I'm going to do that just so I can hear you because it just worries me not hearing you. And I can hear you now.
Okay, great. I
Oh,
think
but we're
there's
going
an
to
echo.
echo. So that's not good.
It's okay, Carol. Keep going.
Okay. I'll finish and I'll just do what I'm doing. I'll
Yep.
just keep going. You know, I started out really good technically today and then I end up with technical issues. I don't know. Anyway, we'll just move on and let's see what we're going to do here. We're going to move on to the next cookie. The next cookie is a delicious cookie, one that I love so very much. And this cookie is just like the cookie I grew up with, which was called a Russian, sometimes it's called a Mexican wedding cookie, sometimes it's called a Russian tea cake. They're the cookies that you make with almonds or pecans or walnuts, and then you roll them usually in confectioner sugar. So this recipe is from a good website called Monkey and Me Adventures. It's a mother and daughter, and they do a lot of baking. And I do like looking at their site, and I do like using their recipes. So we're going to make these cookies, and they are going to be delicious, and they are going to be very special, but very high in fat, just like the regular cookie actually is butter basically and confectioner sugar. And so what we're going to do is I've measured out everything and we have 1 cup of I'm using, you could use walnuts or pecans. It doesn't matter which one you use. And I am using both. And what she says is that you want to grind 1 cup to really mince fine. And the other cup of nuts, you want to kind of just grind so that it looks like quinoa. So one is a little bit more chunky. So I have pecans and walnuts. I decided to use both. And I also have, so I have 2 cups of nuts that have been ground. And then I have 1.25 cups of almond flour that is lightly packed. Okay. So I've done that. And I also have 1/2 teaspoon of soda and 1/2 teaspoon of powder. Okay. So and then we're going to make our wet ingredients. Okay, so let's get this mixed up. These are our dried ingredients, right? And I have to find my 1/2 cup, all my ingredients. So here they are. They're here. So I have 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. Okay, that is going to go with my 1/3 cup of maple syrup. And then I have 1/2 cup of cashew butter. Okay, and like I said, we are in high fat zone here, but they are going to melt in your mouth. And these cookies, when you bring them to a party, they are the biggest crowd pleaser. People love them. And you don't even have to mention to them that they're whole food plant-based because they're like the real thing. They're truly the real thing. And they're so delicious. When in the original recipe, she makes them into balls of bigger cookies. And having made these cookies like 4 or 5 times now, I make them smaller every single time I do it. Every single time, because I realize how rich they are, that I actually only want to have a little bite because it's very, very rich. And I'm always like, okay, well, that don't need another cookie. 1 is enough. So we're gonna mix this And we're just mixing, like I said, the wet with the dry. We have almond flour, pecans, walnuts. You could use just one kind of walnut or pecan. You don't have to use both nuts, but I like using both nuts. I think the flavor is quite delicious. And you can see this is a lot of batter. So you're going to get a lot of cookies with this batter. Okay. And like I said, she just usually scoops them, puts them like we did for the ginger molasses cookie, and she just they kind of collapse a little bit, but they end up like little mounds. But I love making them into crescents. So that's what we're going to do. Now this cookie has to cook at 375. So I'm going to turn the oven up to 375, which isn't great because we do have our biscotti in there cooking. And it is cooking. You see, this is not quite done, but it's almost done. Okay. And I have a lot of I'm just going to leave that in there for a few minutes while the temperature just goes up a little bit. And we are going to get a scale. And this is the way I like to tackle these cookies. Going to get a sheet pan. Maybe we'll get a little sheet pan. We're not going to make all the cookies. Only going to make some of the cookies. After the demo, I'm going to be cooking cookies for like an hour and a half probably because I'm going to have so much batter left. Okay, so I'm taking some parchment paper and we're just going to put this on here. This is all mixed and a little sticky. And what I'm going to do is you could use your scoop if you wanted to use a scoop. But if you want, let's just see. I like the cookies to weigh like 1 ounce. So let's just see if I use this scoop and I put it on the scale. Oh, it's 1 3/8. So I'm going to make these cookies. I like them actually 1 ounce. And I'm just going to roll them and I'm going to shape them into a little crescent. Okay. Again, the dough is a little sticky. The cookies do spread a little bit. So what I would do is I'd weigh a bunch of dough. Let's see, we're at 1 ounce, 1/4. Okay, we're there. And again, I could show you, she basically would roll this cookie. We could make one of those cookies, but let's not make it so big. It's just too big. So this is also 1 ounce. We'll just put a round cookie on so that you see what it's going to look like. And I'm going to just roll a couple of these crescents so you can see how good they're going to look. And like I said, in the oven, they spread a little bit, so you don't want to put them too close together. And I'm just rolling a little log and we're shaping them into crescents. Okay, like a little moon. And we'll make just a couple more. And then what does the oven say? It's not quite at 375, but we need it to be at 375. This cookie's too big. Again, it's up to you how big you make them, but once you taste them, you're going to see how rich they are. And it's better to have them a little bit smaller. Make one more to fit on this sheet pan. I think I can fit one more on this little sheet pan. Wendy, I'm concerned about not hearing from you, but maybe I can hear you just a little bit.
Can you hear me now? No?
Oh, I don't know. I just can't hear you at all.
It's okay. Sorry,
I don't know what
everyone,
to
for
say.
the technical
There's going to be
difficulties.
questions. Maybe at the end we'll take a bunch of questions. And things aren't always perfect. I want them to be perfect, but they're not always perfect. So here's our cookies, right? And we're going to put them in our preheated oven. It doesn't say 375 yet. So we're going to just put them here. And we're going to look at our other cookies here. And they look fantastic. Look at them. They're like, oh, they're beautiful. I'm
They
just
look
going to
amazing.
stack them up. And we're going to just, I don't know, we're going to have them just right there. I'm going to get a little plate for them. I don't know a tiny little plate, just the littlest plate, and just put the cookies right there, just like that.
Amazing.
There, those cookies are done. So that's pretty great. Okay, and then we do have the biscotti in the oven, and we don't have to really finish this biscotti here because we're just gonna dry out our other biscotti, which is what's happening now. So I'm gonna take this out, and I'm gonna put these crescents in. And we're just going to cook those. And those cookies are going to cook for how long? They're going to cook for 10 to 11 minutes. Okay, so we're going to do 10 to 11 minutes. I'm going to look at the clock, and we're doing pretty good. But I think we're going to get to almost everything. Like I said, if we don't get to everything, that's okay. You have a bonus recipe of a no-bake cookie at the end. But let's try to get to the very end and see how things are going. Okay, so the second part of the crescent cookie is what I'm going to show you is pretty magical, and it's we don't eat any confectioner sugar because confectioner sugar is processed sugar basically. But the recipe calls for confectioner sugar, and miraculously, they come up with a great idea. And and I wish I had thought about it myself, actually. But to make confectioner sugar normally, what they do is they take white sugar and they put it with cornstarch, and then they mix the two together, and they get all whipped up together, mixed up and blended. So basically, I'm doing something very similar. It's going to be with the date sugar. And again, when I refer to date sugar, I'm using date sugar that is basically been dried dates that have just been dried and then granulated, right? So it comes in a little package like this. This is organic date sugar. So I've used a 1/4 cup of date sugar and a 1/4 cup of cornstarch. Now, normally I do this in my Vitamix because it's so powerful, but I recently needed a part for my Vitamix, so my Vitamix at this moment is not happening. So we're going to try this process in the NutriBullet, which I think is equally as strong almost as the Vitamix, and I just have to give it a plug in over here. Okay, and we're going to just blend this till it gets all aired up, like we're going to aerate it. Okay, so it's going to make a lot of noise in a minute, and I've never done it in my NutriBullet. Now, the good thing about the Vitamix is you can always look inside and see how it's doing, but I think it actually looks really, really great. I'm very excited to show you this. And oh my gosh, it looks just like powdered sugar. Look at that in there. Can you see? The only thing that is different about this powdered sugar is it's not bright white. And you can't have it bright white when you are starting with something that is light brown, right? So it has a little bit of a tan color to it, but it is going to serve as our powdered sugar, and it looks awesomely great. Okay, and I usually we don't need all of that, and I always have a jar now of the powdered sugar just in my pantry, and it just stays there, and it can be used at any time. So I usually just use it for these cookies and just to make a dusting. Okay, does that sound good? So the next cookie comes from another website that I actually very much love. And I like it because she does a lot of, it's called My Quiet Kitchen. And I think it's such a sweet name. The woman's name is Lori that runs My Quiet Kitchen. And her pie dough recipe is one of my favorites. And this cookie is also gluten-free, which I think is great because when you're going to a party, there's always somebody that can't have, grain, a flour. So that this is a very simple jam cookie. And we need to have the oven at 350 for this cookie, but we're cooking at 375 now, but surely those cookies are going to come out soon. And let me just make sure that, oh, I'm going to have so many cookies, I don't know how I'm going to deal with. People are going to have to come over and eat them. So let's just go over what we need for these cookies, okay? And I'm going to try to clean up here at the same time. Got a lot going on here. Okay, so for this cookie we need, she gives us the cups and the weight. And I always love a baking recipe when it comes with the weight because it is better to measure because you and I, if you're going to measure a cup and a quarter or a cup and a half of almond flour, you're going to measure it differently than I am, and then it's going to have different results. So when a recipe provides both, it's always best to weigh the ingredients. So I have measured 169 grams of almond flour, which technically is a cup and a half. And then we're using tapioca flour, and tapioca flour, we're using 40 grams, which is a third of a cup. Okay. Now she uses 1/4 of a cup of coconut sugar, and I want to use date sugar instead. And I thought that I measured out the date sugar, but maybe I didn't. So let's just measure out the 1/4 cup, and I've used every cup that I have. I have a lot of cups, but let's just wash out my 1/4 cup so that it's clean and dry. Okay, and we're going to do a 1/4 cup. I think the date sugar is just a little healthier than the coconut sugar. Again, coconut has a lot of saturated fat. So if I can swap out the date sugar, that's what I'm going to do. So they pretty much look the same. Oops, this is why you don't usually do it over the bowl because you get it everywhere. Okay. And oops. You know what? I just realized I just put this in here by accident. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. So we're gonna put the date sugar, okay, and we're gonna mix this up. These are the dry ingredients, right? And then we're going to add 3 tablespoons. I need to get all my spoons out. Everything is dirty and crazily dirty. And we're gonna add 3 tablespoons of water. Okay, so let's do that. 3 tablespoons of water. Okay, 1 and 2 and 3, right? 3 tablespoons of water. I have 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Okay, let's just get all that out.
Hey, Carol,
Okay,
can you
that's
hear
good.
me?
And then we're going to add approximately 1 teaspoon here of vanilla. And I think I have a teaspoon here. Here's our vanilla. Okay, and that's that. Okay, and we're going to mix this up. And that is all that is in these cookies. Very simple, very, very simple. And this will all come together nicely. Let's just look at the other cookies. Oh, the crescents are looking beautiful. Let's just do this with the biscotti. I'm gonna just show you that we're gonna flip them over. I'm literally gonna hold the sheet pan while we do this. But you wanna just flip them over. It's like you're toasting them, right? And your goal is to make them dried out, right? So they stay in the oven for like 25 minutes at the higher temperature. And if you take them out too soon and you think they're too soft, then just put them back in. They do dry out a little bit when you are, what do they do? They dry out when they get just sitting out cooling off. But I just flip them all and they're all going to go back in the oven. Okay. Oh, the cookies in that oven are looking awesomely great. Okay, so this is, let's just get these cookies out. And I'm just going to get my hands in here and really get it mixed. And time is going by. I do miss you so much, Wendy. I never knew how much I like talking to you. I don't know, I'm very sad because I can't answer people's questions, but I'm going to try not to be sad. I'm just going to pretend that it's all good. And we're mixing this. Again, this is going to be a jam-filled cookie. Really fun to make jam-filled cookies. They were my husband's favorite cookies, jam-filled cookies. And like I said, these ones are gluten-free. It's a little bit of a sticky batter. That's just, I think it's always good just, you can taste it. Okay, it tastes good. That's good. It's very, very sticky. Oh, I don't like it, but it's good to get in there with your hands when you're baking. So that's why I never have long fingernails, or so that no dirt is growing under my nails. I constantly keep my nails really short. And you want to wash your hands constantly, right? And we're going to get another sheet pan. Actually, I think we could, this is typical of me. You're going to see a typical Carole thing actually here. This was our paper for our for our molasses cookies. And I'm just going to flip it over literally and use it again because that is a typical Carole thing to do. I usually recycle the paper as many times as possible. And I'm not even going to bother to wash this from the crescent cookies because these have almonds in it. And it's like we need to make balls, right? So we're just going to make a bunch of balls. And again, these cookies need to cook at 350 degrees, but we can't lower the temperature quite yet on the oven because until our crescents are done. And they're almost done. And we might get to our very last recipe, which would be amazing. Okay, so we're not going to make a million of these, but maybe we can. Because we're just going to make that many for now. Okay, and I always roll these cookies. Okay, my hands are a little tiny bit damp. Okay, and again, I use the same scoop. You don't want to make these cookies too large. And that's just, it's really hard to have the camera dirty. I don't like that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to flatten these cookies a little bit. Okay, I'm just kind of flattening them with the palm of my hand, right? And then what you want to do is you want to put, this is a great cookie for if you have any little children. It's the first cookie that I always teach children because you get to put your thumb in the middle of it. And the thumb is for the thumbprint for the jam, right? So you're just going to put your thumb in it. And alternatively, if you didn't want to put your thumb, you could use a spoon, right? And you could, a teaspoon, and you could just make an indentation. Right? That is a fine way of going about the same thing as putting your thumb in it. But I find I can shape it a little more when I put the thumb. Isla's just decided to wake up, my little girl, my little doggy. And she's smelling the baking, I'm sure. But it is the one thing she can't have is baked goods. Well, I do bake her little dog biscuits. So maybe she thinks I'm doing that, but I'm not. but I do bake her little dog biscuits. And then we want to put jam in here. And the jam that I use is this lovely Saint Delafour. I've put it in the recipe. I like it very much because it's sweetened with apple juice and it has a lot, there's a lot of different flavors. They make like 7 or 8 kind. This one is raspberry pomegranate. I always like using apricot. I usually like using a red and a yellow or orange so that the cookies are all different colors. And I always get 2 little spoons, or you get a teaspoon, and you just fill the cookie with the jam, right? And you don't want to overfill. You just want to get the jam right into the hole, right? And so we have 3, we'll put these 3 cookies here, do that, and then we'll make 3. I have another spoon to make for that red jam. Okay, and we're gonna just fill that up. And then we have green, and you could use blueberry or cherry, whatever is your favorite jam. That's really what you should use. In the recipe, she actually says if you don't want to have store-bought spread, and you could just make your own, which is a blueberry jam. Basically, she makes a blueberry jam out of 2 ingredients. She just cooks wild blueberries with a little bit of maple syrup. I would just cook a little blueberries with a date, actually, and that date kind of disintegrates. And sometimes I just smash up fresh raspberries, and I put chia seeds. And that is also kind of a fun jam to make. But these are the cookies. Here they are right here. And they're just gonna, now they're gonna go in the oven too. But we need to look at the other because we have different temperatures happening. And let's just see how this is all going. 1 second. These are definitely done. These are looking like this. Can you see? You see how the round one is fine, but I think it's prettier. It's prettier when it's a crescent. Yay! Thank you for the heads up. Thank you. And so we need to let those cool for a minute. So let's just kind of let them cool. I'm going to just leave them there. And we're going to put our oven down now to 350. And ultimately, one should wait till the oven gets to 350, but I'm just going to put, these are just going to go in now as is. Okay. And these can come out probably. The biscotti can come out. They look amazing. Look at those, how good they look, right? And we're just going to let them cool over here. And honestly, we do have just enough time to wrap up the last cookie, which doesn't even go in the oven, which is really great. It's I have showed many kinds of ball cookies that are made from dates. There's a lot of recipes out there. I thought that this one was quite fun. It's also from the Monkey and Me website, and it's called a raspberry bliss. But today we're going to make it a strawberry bliss instead of raspberry. And let me show you why we're making strawberry opposed to raspberry. It's because when I get the what do you call it, the key to these cookies are using freeze-dried fruit. And the only place, whether you could order these things online for sure, nowhere in my town do I know a place to get freeze-dried fruit, nowhere. But the Trader Joe's has this freeze-dried. And anytime I am at a Trader Joe's, I usually buy 3 or 4, sometimes 5 bags, and I throw it in my pantry. I've already used all the raspberries, so we're doing strawberries, which gives the same effect. We want red for Christmas. So let's just get these things. And this cookie takes no time whatsoever, but we do need to have a machine. And again, I'm sorry about not being able to answer the questions, but somehow we'll figure that out. At the very end, I'll make it work somehow. I don't know. I have 2 places to hear you from, and I'll change something. We'll do something. So in this, what we need to do is get 7 medjool dates into this machine. And my medjool dates were fairly hard. they they were in the freezer and they were hard, so I actually soaked them so that they would be super nice and smooth. If yours are just fresh and totally smushy, which usually medjool dates are, then you definitely don't need to soak them. And I want to tell you that this sugary water is amazing, and I would never throw it out. You could use it for numerous things. I won't get into that now, but that is basically sugar water, and you could use it for so many things. Okay, so we're gonna put our lid on. We're gonna make a little bit of noise here for a minute. And just basically want to get those all chopped up. Let me just get a spatula. My little girl, she's sitting here at my feet. I don't know what she's expecting to happen at the moment. What do you think? You're wagging your tail, huh? You want to be in the camera? No, you can't be in the camera. Maybe at the end. Maybe at the end, Isla could be in the camera. She wants to say hello to everyone. So these are the dates, okay? Now, what it says is we need to put an entire one package, and she must use the same dates because she has 34 grams, and this whole package is 34 grams. So it's a perfect amount that's going to go in there. But I stole a few out of there earlier, and I put it in a plastic bag, just a few, just literally like this many. Literally, I'll show you. I took a few, and then I put them in a bag, and then I rolled a rolling pin over them so it would become pink powder. Okay? Pink powder, that's what we're going to have. But the rest of these are going in here right now. Okay, pink powder is for later. Okay, and we are going to put the pink powder. Then we need to add a 1/4 cup of coconut. Okay, and that's going to go in here. And we have 1/4 cup, 3 tablespoons of cashew butter. Okay, again, we are on the rich side of things, but oh my gosh, she says to make these balls quite, like nice size, but I also make them really tiny. 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Okay, that's going in here. And then we're going to add some vanilla, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I think all my teaspoons are all in the sink. Let me just see if I can find my 1 teaspoon. Here it is. I actually have 2 sets of spoons, 2 sets. So it means I have 2 teaspoons, 2 of everything. But looky here, we're doing so much baking, I'm running out of everything. So we need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, that's going in there. And we need 1 teaspoon of water. That's easy enough. You know what? I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of this date water because it's just right here. Why not? Right? Okay, and then we're going to keep this. We're going to keep this. We're going to keep this. And we're going to move all this. And then we're just going to blend all that. And then we're not going to have to bake anything. But we are going to have to scrape down the side. That's for sure. And where is the little scraper? Oh, did I get rid of it? I must have gotten rid of it. It's okay. Here is another one. Okay. And we're almost done, Wendy. I just want you to know, I know that you have a lot of announcements. I know Jim has announcements. And during that time, I'll figure out how I'm going to be able to hear you. Okay, that is enough noise, and that is super smooth. That is what we want. We're looking for something super smooth. And I'm going to remove this out of the way, just out of the way. And I have So look at the little cookies inside. Those are cooking. That's good. Oh, and we needed to make those cookies at the thumbprints. If I remember right, they needed to be at 350, and that's what the temperature is. So that's good. So what we're gonna do now is just decorate the cookies, right? These little balls. And I'm going to get a couple little plates, not too many, right? It's a little bit of a production. And it's up to you. Again, I use the scale for everything because I'm used to making things all very even. But you just want to take this nice red ball. And again, you could use a scoop. I'm going to weigh them so that they're very small. I literally want them to be very small. I want them to be, I'm going to make them 1 ounce. I guess 1 ounce is bigger than I actually would like them to be, but let's just make a bunch of balls so they're 1 ounce. Okay. And it's up to you how creative you are in decorating them. And eventually, I like to put them in the refrigerator to harden up. You can put them in the freezer. She recommends putting them in the freezer. Either you can't have anything and you have to wait. You just have to wait. You cannot be talking at the moment. And it's up to you, again, how you decorate them. They're very sticky at the moment, but that's good because we want the powder. And you have to be careful if you're digging in here and the blade is still in here. Okay. And either you have to be quiet. I just do. We have enough sound issues today, and we don't need your crying at the same moments as yeah, when I can't even hear Wendy. That's like a big deal, not hearing Wendy. Yeah, you can't go outside either. That's just so what you're gonna do is you're gonna get these balls and then you're gonna make them different colors, okay? And you're gonna decorate them however you wish to decorate. I'm putting a little bit of powder, pink powder dust. I'm putting a little bit of pistachio powder dust. You can use some cocoa if you want to roll them in. It's your imagination, okay? So here's the pink cocoa. And then I thought I would put a few little coconuts on top just to actually get a little bit of a kind of red and white thing going on here. Okay, just a few coconuts. And again, I would put these on a plate and ultimately put them in the freezer or put them in the refrigerator just until they get cold and firm. And they are going to be the most delicious. And like I said, you get as creative as you want and make as many kinds that you want. You could get the cocoa. Let's just finish with the pink dust. Put a few more pink dust. And I don't think the raspberry cookies are going to be done by the time we finish the show. But I have to say, it's been a miracle that we've gotten this all done. I really very much wanted to show you all these things, and it's really quite something. And Wendy, and I promise you, at the very end, while you're doing your thing in a moment, I'm going to sign off on one camera, and I'm going to log on to the other camera so we can just get to the few questions, because I would feel horrible if we didn't get to the questions. I mean, the questions are everything. But I really want to thank everyone so much for having watched me make so many cookies and show you how fun plant-based cookie making can be, and that it's really possible. That's the fun part, is that it's possible. And you figure out, you make some adjustments yourself. You choose your sweeteners that you want to use. I do try to stick to the healthier ones. I do use the maple syrup. It's not up there on the top as a best choice, but it's not a bad choice. It's just not the best choice. But you experiment a little bit, and let's just finish making this one cookie here. I'm going to roll it in the cocoa because it's going to be beautiful in the cocoa. Right? And so this is what these look like. I'm just showing you how pretty they are. And then we're just going to kind of move this off to the side for a moment. And we have to get, we're going to put these, and we have to get our crescents, which are so beautiful. And we're going to get our little sifter, and we're going to get our confectioner sugar, and we're just going to put a little dusting, just a little bit of dusting over the top. Look, those are the prettiest cookies maybe you've ever seen, right? That are whole food plant-based with a little confectioner sugar. If anything you take away today is you now know how to make not plant-based confection. And look how much, it only takes a teeny bit to make a beautiful, beautiful dusting of cookies, right? So let's just remove some of this, and we are going to get a small plate for the biscotti. I think the raspberry cookies are still cooking. Let's just look. Oh yeah, they're still cooking. You might not get to see those totally finished, but that's okay. You've seen everything, so I'm very happy that you've seen everything. And let's just put these cookies on a plate.